Welcome to Corks and Conversation with Daisy Bateman.
I'm so excited to talk with her. Her just released mystery book that just came out, A Dismal Harvest, we're holding it up here if you're on YouTube with us, was just published on March 15th, otherwise known as the Ides of March. Nothing mysterious ever happens that day.
Oh no, or murderous or anything.
So I'm curious to see what she thinks about that omen. But first, let me tell everybody about Daisy. She is the author of the Lefty nominated, which, if you don't know, is a big deal, a marketplace mystery series in which an artisan, apparently I wanted to get a little sexy there.
Fancy.
Artisan marketplace owner Claudia Simcoe solves mysteries and eats things in an idyllic small town on the northern California coast. A mystery lover, cheese enthusiast, and this we have to ask her about, world-renowned expert in why you should buy that. Daisy lives in Alameda, California with her husband, a puppy, and a cat. And in what passes for a normal life, she works in biotech.
Interesting.
I know there's a lot to unpack there, which I'm very excited about. I do want to tell you about this really great endorsement from Publishers Weekly. Claudia's lively and often highly amusing narration presents plausible potential suspects and motives galore. All this plus intelligent, furry, and feathered friends. Cozy fans will eagerly await Claudia's next adventure, which we have today. We're now on to the next
we're
adventure.
on number 2, right?
Yeah. So Daisy, welcome. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. This is great to be here.
Yay.
Absolutely, I know. So before we even get started, we're going to talk about what we're drinking today because we're kind of branching out from wine. We're going into the cider world. It kind of goes well with Daisy's book, and you suggested it, Daisy. This is Ace Cider, located in the town where the book takes place, kind of.
Close to the town where the book takes place doesn't really exist, but it's modeled after a town that's very close to where this is made.
Okay. And it is, you go ahead and taste it, girls. So according to their website, they're pure, clean, refreshing because they use only the best eating apples for their juice and best ingredients they could buy. And also they tout themselves as the first cider pub in the U.S. I don't know. I'm not well versed. I didn't even know there were cider pubs, so I tend to believe that. Have you been there, Daisy?
I have. It's a great place. It's very funky, kind of right on the edge of a town, this small Northern California town. You go in the summer, sometimes they have barbecue oysters, which is sort of
I love barbecue
around there.
Oh, I'm in.
Well, and I actually got guava flavor because that's what we had in Florida at the store where I found it.
I have, upon Daisy's recommendation, I have pear. What do you have, Daisy?
I also have the pear. I think that this one's my favorite. It's what I've always got. And there's a Perry that appears in the book, so I thought that was.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yep.
This is, I'm going to tell you right now, my first hard cider I've ever had.
Oh, wow.
Really?
I really, well, it's because
I actually don't really remember the last time I have, but I know I've had it before.
I've
lived long enough.
I'm a fan. I thought, I don't know. I'm a fan.
Yep.
Count me in.
I'm glad. I hadn't realized I was taking such a risk here.
Yeah, groundbreaking.
We're really not that hard. Okay, so good. Let's get into this, Daisy. I am so thrilled for you. Congratulations. We both think this is great.
Well, thank you so much.
Your book came out on the Ides of March. What did you think of that?
I thought it was a great way to remind everybody what day my book was coming out.
It is. It's perfect. I bet you were busy on social media on that day.
Sadly, there's no stabbing in the book, so I can't really tie it in. None of the deaths happen on steps of senates or otherwise.
Right.
Next time.
Spoiler alert, murderer not named Brutus.
Cal. You should have done this differently. Okay, so let's talk about, though, what does happen. So this is the second installment, A Dismal Harvest, which is a great title. It's the second installment in the series. And Claudia Simcoe has left San Francisco and her tech job. So I'm really excited to ask you about where that idea came from. To go do this farm to table marketplace, right? And in the first book, she was the main suspect and had to kind of clear herself. But in this book, it's a friend of hers, a tenant, that is suspected of killing a, wait for it, crooked lawyer.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
We all know them. No, I think Cathi, you got out of the business.
I have actually been called that exact phrase when I was in my previous life, like that exact phrase. The quote was, "Oh, just what we need, another crooked lawyer." Thank you. Anyway, so
And that wasn't her husband saying that either.
No, it wasn't. So I know, Claudia, that you are, Claudia's called you your main character, Daisy, that you are a lover of cheese. I've been on your blog. I am also a lover of cheese. And
We both are.
we all love cheese. Well, really,
Yeah.
who doesn't?
Right. Some people don't, but they're crazy.
They're wrong. They're just wrong. The suspect is a cheesemaker. And so I just thought that was really fun to learn about. And I was curious about how this whole concept came to you for the first book, just this marketplace that Claudia creates, and how did this all come to you?
Well, I mean, I wanted to write a cozy mystery because it's what I love reading, and I was thinking about what sort of place you could set it, and I just noticed that these artisan market things keep popping up, particularly in the West. I'm sure across the country as well. That sell local goods, and it kind of became a thing. And I think I was reading a Sunset article about one at one point. I'm like, wow, that would be a great setting for a mystery because you've got this diverse group of people all doing interesting things, all in a place, and it's all
Lots of weapons, probably.
Lots of weapons. In the first book, there is a cheese wire and a giant jar of pickles are employed. To say, and then obviously there's butcher knives and other things around. But, yeah, I just thought it would have a lot of scope for multiple stories, so that a series that could go on. And one book I could talk about cheese, and another book I can talk about charcuterie, and
I love it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
such a cool theme. I mean, I would enjoy just doing the research, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
research is great. Highly recommend.
Right. Your blog that Cathi mentioned does tell us a lot about cheese, which I thought was really cool. I mean, I think everybody should go on and check that out just for the cheese, because I loved how you, like on the last newsletter or something, how to build a cheese plate, and you name the cheeses like funky and creamy and then have 5 different ones like that, and that's how you pick it. And I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. I mean,
Yep.
I could follow those rules.
And I mean, lots of people have lots of ideas about cheese plate building, and I'm certainly, there are like cheesemongers and chefs who put them together. That's just my idea. It's a nice thing about cheese. It's really hard to do it wrong.
It is.
I mean,
That's true.
I was gifted I actually thought about this when I was reading your book. I have to find it. I was gifted a kitchen towel by a friend, and it's orange, and it says in big giant words, I effing. Look at your thing. I effing love cheese is the whole towel. Look at Christie's. Oh, I'm sorry.
This was a Christmas
impressive.
present from my kids. And see, they put it in there, Christie's Kitchen, and it had some of my favorite things, books and wine in my college.
ah,
Isn't that nice?
that's great.
So I definitely need your tips for cheese.
I love that. So, okay, so you mentioned all the characters you get to create. Let's talk about that, because you have a really great cast of characters.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, it's kind of the joy of writing these books is coming up with these characters and trying to find ways, give them quirks that you might not necessarily expect. The over the top Swiss cheesemaker man. I have to use him in small quantities because he's a little bit much, but
Dedicated to his craft.
yeah, no, each person comes in and I try to think about them as if they were the center of the story, and like how to make a person who would be interesting enough to read about on their own, and then
Oh, that's interesting.
also
That's a good
part
way of
the
looking
whole
at it.
story.
That is really good. So when you're creating these characters, I'm curious, do you Are you a writer who like does a lot of backstory for each character? I mean, you really know who they are and their worlds.
Not too much of that. A little bit for my main character because I really need to get into
Yeah.
depth with her. But a lot of it just sort of comes up in the moment, and it's like, oh, and I think now Carmen used to be a pool shark on river cruises. That's fun. I'll figure out if I can use that later.
So I'm thinking that your readers probably are going to be also friends of yours who you see at these marketplaces in California. And if they see you at one of these, they're going to be like, I better be careful. I'm not going to end up in Daisy's next book.
People, frankly, should be more careful around me. I don't think they realize it yet.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So also, I really liked this quote by Katrina McPherson that because she's one of our favorite authors too, and she's a Mary Higgins Clark Award finalist
Yeah.
and everything. So she, we trust what she
She knows
says.
her stuff, Daisy.
And so this
She
is
knows
how
of what
she
speaks.
describes your series. The foodie cozy is not too sweet, not too sharp, but just right. The setting, a farm to fork marketplace and cottage by the sea in California, pulls us in on page one, and the daydream is complete when we meet Claudia Simcoe, who's a BFF waiting to happen, which, of course, we all want to be friends with her. Of course, murder gets in the way, but the plot is tight, twists convincing, the resolution nicely sprung, and did I say it's laugh out loud funny? So what we want to know is, does this writing with humor come naturally, or is it harder than it looks? You gonna fill us in on the dirt, or
Well, I don't know. I put jokes in pretty much everything I do, I think.
so I think it comes naturally.
It's a little
Sounds
bit
like.
natural, but it's also work. Like you do have to look at your jokes critically and be like, am I just indulging myself here? Is anybody else going to even understand why I think this is funny? And, have I stretched a little bit too far to try to make this joke work and now the whole paragraph doesn't make sense? Like you have to be a little bit brutal even with your humor.
Now, are you able to self-regulate, or do you have somebody else read it, like your husband and he? Or...
My agent and my editor are pretty good at pointing out the places where something has fallen flat. What? I don't get this. Oh, it was supposed to be funny. Well, it's not funny.
Yeah. Well, it's like a stand-up comedian. You know immediately if the audience is going to laugh or not, but how do you know when you're a writer until somebody reads it?
Yeah, no, that it really is it. It's not. You're right to be read. You can't just be amusing yourself.
Yeah, and I love the location too. San Elmo. You say it's. I thought it was probably a real place. I didn't know. We haven't been to California as much, but
Yeah, so it's based on there's a town called Bodega Bay in California. It's
oh
where
yeah,
Netflix
I've
was
been
set.
there.
Yes, so it's based. I've been going there since I was a little kid, and so San Elmo Bay is based on Bodega Bay, and it just made the town a little bit larger because gave it more of a downtown, so there was a little bit more setting for things to happen in the town. So I
Isn't
kind of
that where The Birds was filmed?
Yeah, that was where The Birds was filmed.
Yeah, that's where I went with my dad, and he fell the first minute we got there, and we had to go to the emergency room inland.
Probably all the way to Santa Rosa or something.
I don't know where it was. It was, it was at night, and I was like, oh my gosh, because I had driven up from San Francisco in fog. So I was just ready to settle. And then he cut his hand. And so we went to this emergency room and didn't get home. And everything was closed because it's pretty quiet.
It's a pretty quiet, pretty tiny town.
Yeah.
As it exists in reality.
But very pretty.
Yeah. No, and a beautiful, beautiful setting.
Otters
Did you
in the
grow up-
bay.
Did you grow up in this area?
I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area.
You did.
So
Sounds absolutely, perfect for a cozy, because, right, you want that perfect picture community, but it sounds absolutely beautiful. By your
really,
descriptions and,
yeah, I think it's one of the most gorgeous places in the world. Might be
that's awesome.
biased.
You might be biased. I don't know. Okay, so let's segue, Christy, don't you think, and ask her the question in the bottle.
While I'm getting it out. Okay, so the question is, this is a good one. If you could travel anywhere for a meal, where would it be?
Ooh. Oh, that is a tough one because there's a lot of great places that I
I
love.
know, gosh. I think I travel everywhere for the meal.
Um, I guess I would probably have to say Tokyo. That some of the absolute best food I have ever had, I think, is there. I mean, France is putting up a good fight, but yeah, that just I didn't really understand why, you sometimes you go for sushi here and they serve you uni and it's kind of disgusting. I didn't understand why anybody ate it until I went to Japan.
Oh,
And that's,
interesting.
yeah, no, that's fabulous if you get it and it's good and it's
Wow.
fresh. Um, but yeah, and it's not even anything specific. It's just the food in general is so good there. And
I'm gonna have to go when I go on my trip to Korea, which actually probably does have really good food too. I mean,
also has fantastic food. Yes.
yeah.
No, lots
Um,
of
That's a really good answer, and I'm kind of inspired.
I know.
What would you do,
Because I mean,
You'd pick
well,
Korea, wouldn't you, right now? Because you want to go see your daughter.
yeah, yeah. I loved Italy for the food, like Tuscany.
mm.
Um, you know what? I like to eat everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I mean I've
I
had
travel
fantastic.
across the country, U.S. and just stop and eat at fun restaurants.
Yeah, well, for years my favorite book to give as a gift and keep for myself was called Road Food, by anyway, this pair of writers who used to write for Gourmet magazine and who would drive around the country and go to all. That was basically the original diners, drive-ins, and dives,
Oh, well, at
but
least it wasn't
on
called
television.
roadkill food. I thought that's what you were going to say. I was like, that's what we got down here in Florida in the South. We got roadkill
Yeah, they're
food.
listed many lovely places in Florida. Sadly, I think the book is long since out of date because restaurants don't stay around
Yeah.
forever. But yeah, I did
Yeah.
it years ago. I did a cross country driving trip and used it as my guide, and yeah, went to the funkiest little places, all
Oh,
over
cool.
fantastic food.
That's so cool.
Oh,
I
I
love
would.
books and TV shows and movies, anything that deals with food and travel. Like that's such a cool, great combination, isn't it?
I
Yeah,
know. We should do that, Kathy. And we could throw in, author interviews along the way
I
over
mean,
food and traveling. Kathy's
travel.
like, okay, I have so much I have to do. Please don't make me.
I think travel is so like appeal. I mean, the idea of travel is like, what travel? Like, because we haven't done it for so long.
I
yeah.
know, that's
And
true.
you add food in, and it's like, oh,
Mhm.
I'm in.
Yep.
Okay, so that was an excellent answer, and I want to go to Tokyo immediately for
Hmm.
fresh um, food. Like, I'm picturing you setting out in like street vendors and stuff for some reason. I don't know if that's
Actually, oddly enough, one of the or a couple of the best meals we had were in restaurants and shopping malls.
Oh, really?
really.
Yeah, like the shopping malls there, they'll often on the top floor have really nice little restaurants that you can just, and
Mm.
it's not. I'm sure if you're doing like the Michelin Guide, you are going to but
Yeah.
but I guess for me, one of my definitions of a great food city is somewhere where anywhere you go, at kind of any level, you get great food. It's
Hmm.
what I love about Berkeley, which is pretty much where I grew up. Is like there's fabulous cuisine and there's also like really great hot dogs.
I'm so hungry right now. I'm literally, my mouth is producing an excess amount of saliva. Sorry to tell you that. Okay, so I'm very curious, Daisy. You work, like you say, in your normal day in biotech. How did you go from doing that to deciding to become a cozy writer on the side? Tell me about that transition.
Well, I mean, I'm doing both. Yeah, it was sort of always both. I've always loved reading. I loved writing. I've been writing since I was started writing my first novel when I was in college. Which
Oh,
let's not
really?
talk about how long this has been. But and mysteries are what I read. So the biotech, it satisfies the kind of science interest side of me and the part of me that needs a job to make money.
There is that.
Then the cozy, and then writing cozy mysteries is just the passion that I have.
I love
Oh, it's
that.
fun.
I know. I love that. I saw that your blog on your website goes all the way back to 2004, I think.
Actually, it goes back to that cross country drive I was just talking about.
Really?
Yes, it started out as a blog on Blogspot called Half the Fun because getting there is half the
Is
fun. It
half
was
the
about
fun.
and was infrequently updated ever since.
I
Well,
mean,
is
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead,
Christy.
Kathy. I was wondering if any of this is related to the tagline in your intro that you are a world-renowned. Why should you buy that?
That's mostly a
Expert.
service I provide to friends. I got the world renowned in there because I know some people in Canada. So
Oh, okay.
it's
So you're the shopping guide for your
a
friends,
shopping
or
guide, and if somebody is like, I really like these shoes, but I don't think I need them, I'm very good at coming up with a reason of why you do need them.
Oh, that's funny.
oh,
So I used to have a friend like that who, if I would be debating, if I told her, I would end up buying it guaranteed.
Mhm.
yeah. I've
And so
always
you
needed a
know,
person like that because I
right?
can never make decisions.
That's awesome. So I love that you've been writing forever and you've written previous novels. We've had authors on that call them their practice novels, right? That
Mhm.
are carefully put away. I have one of those, two of those actually too. Um, I want to know what you've learned since you've actually gotten published, finished your books and gotten published in the last couple of years. Like what has been the big takeaway?
Um, well, I had to learn to write to a deadline, which was a big difference. All the time we're writing the practice novels, nobody's waiting for it.
Hmm.
So really learning how to sit down and just put the words on the page. The line about you can't edit a blank page could not be more true. Not to get hung up on, well, I've got to figure out the exact thing to put here. Just put something there and keep going. Um, but then that's probably, and
Yeah, that's a hard thing to learn for some people anyway, like me.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know, I'm not a real good, I kind of like to edit too much on my way. So it
mhm.
takes longer.
And
So do
which
you,
is a perfectly valid way to write, but when you're on a deadline and you just need to, and you can get hung up on, I need to get this right instead of I need to get this done.
mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Done is better than right all the time, most of the time.
Hmm.
Like you say, games went down. So do you have a pattern that you stick to? Are you a morning writer? Or are you a writer whenever you can? We just talked to a writer a few weeks ago who has a full-time job as well, and she writes religiously over her noon hour at work.
Mhm.
And I was very impressed by that. And she said even when she gets invitations from coworkers to go out for lunch, she's like, nope. I was very impressed by that schedule. What's yours like?
So for Dismal Harvest, because that was written in lockdown, I'm mostly an evening writer. My brain does not work terribly well first thing,
Hmm.
so that was mostly written in the evenings after work. But actually, a lot of my other writing and what I do now is I commute on the ferry. So there's a ferry
Oh.
across the San Francisco Bay. I live in Alameda, which is an island on the east side of the bay, and I work in South San Francisco, which is a different city from San Francisco itself. So it's about a 40-minute ferry ride.
Where you're trapped and you
Yeah.
have to get
And,
something
and
done.
the Wi-Fi is terrible. So
That's
so
awesome.
I've got that, and then I do also work in the evenings when I have time.
Wow.
But
Hmm.
yeah, that gives me kind of a block of time each way to
I
go.
love
Wow,
that.
that's yeah.
That sounds,
That's use of time plus,
it is. It sounds very
you know,
picturesque also.
yeah. That's what I was like. I was like,
Right.
oh, I just want to do that just to ride along. It's like going to an exotic country just to write a novel. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna ride the
Or to
ferry.
work to your exotic job.
Every once in a while, you do see dolphins.
So
Oh,
how many are you moving forward with this series? Are we going to get to see another one of
I certainly hope so. Third book is underway, but
Okay.
nothing scheduled yet.
Okay, well we'll be looking for it.
Okay.
I mean, this one just came out, but you know how it is
yeah, she's
when you
like,
get
give
on a
me a minute. It's just my
series, you're like,
birthday.
I know. I'm like,
What's
"Yeah, she
next?
was talking deadlines. I'm like, who knows?
We won't try to impose one on you. So I'm curious about how you like your road to publication. Did you write the first one in the series and then do the traditional pitching to an agent? How did that come about?
So what actually happened is the book. I have an agent and I pitched her, but I pitched her a previous book to Murder Goes to Market.
Hmm.
Um, which it's sort of, I call it my ghost book. It sold, but to a publisher that immediately closed. So, it does kind of follow me around on the internet, despite not having existed in the real world. So that one, and I did very much the traditional thing. I wrote a query letter. I went through agent query. I sent things out, and I eventually found this terrific agent who wanted to work with me. So then after that didn't happen, I sort of sat down and reassessed and had a lot of wine and came up with an idea for a new series, and I wrote that, and then we pitched that to editors.
Oh, great.
Not a linear path then.
No, more of a roller coaster than a railroad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of cool. I mean, I understand that it's not great, the first book and everything, but to be able to pitch to editors like on spec versus having the whole book
I didn't
done.
have to have that fully. I had to have the first book fully written.
Oh, okay. But at the idea of a series.
I wrote the book, and then we pitched that book to editors. The second book I did, because I went back to the same editor, I was able just to send a pitch, and they.
So how
Right.
long did your agent say when she said, "Yeah, this sounds good, this new series," and you're like, "All right, I'm going to write this first one so that we can then." Well, how long did that? What period of time are you talking about?
I think it took from when I started writing the book to when we started sending out was probably a little over a year. I'm very bad at time, particularly since all of time seems to
Since
have.
all time
I
started.
know.
But
So was your relationship with your agent one that you could, as you were writing, ask her questions, and did you keep her clued in, or did she just sit quietly back?
definitely more the former. I keep her up to date what I'm doing, and she's very editorial. So once I had a draft, I send it to her, and she sends back a lot of comments, and I don't respond to the email for 24 hours, and then I go through and work on the comments.
That's the hardest part, right?
A couple of rounds of that before it goes to market before we send it out. So it was pretty ready to go.
Well, great. Anyway,
Okay,
well, I think we should go to that final question that we ask all of our authors, and that is, which of your characters would you like to share a meal with, and what would it be?
Oh. Well, I mean, Claudia is the obvious answer, but I'm not sure if I would just be sharing a meal with myself at that point. So I think I'm going to say Betty, and it would be one of the lovely pasta dishes she cooks with the fresh ingredients from her garden, and probably some lovely fresh ricotta from the Dancing Cow Cheese company.
So my mouth is watering now too. At least mine is watering about this gourmet meal, not a hot dog, Kathy.
I got hungry.
They were really good hot dogs.
Okay.
do
To
like
be
a good
fair,
hot
you did
dog.
say they were good hot dogs.
Okay, Daisy, if our listeners have more questions about you and your latest book, A Dismal Harvest, where's the best place to find you?
Well, my website is definitely just don't. Every comment on my website goes to my spam, so sometimes it takes me a little while to respond. I'm also very active on Twitter at DaisyJ. And so that's probably the best place to find me. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram, but less reliably.
At Daisy
All
J.
right,
I
so
love that.
look it up. Well, thank you so much for being here with us today and introducing us to this cider, which we're going
know.
to do a final cheers
And
to your
cheers to
fourth
you.
birthday.